Are you ready to embark on a journey of success? To discover your true potential in the untold stories of careers in life sciences? Welcome to PATHFINDER by the Purdue Institute of Inflammation, Immunology and Infectious Disease. With your host, Tommy Soares, discover the untold stories of industry scientists and unveil the secrets to excelling in your career. Thank you for joining us once again, and remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Welcome, everybody. My name is Tommy Soares. I'm Director of Scientific Strategy and Relations for the Purdue Institute of Inflammation, Immunology and Infectious Disease. And today on PATHFINDER, I have the honor to welcome Chief Innovation Officer Vladimir Popov, who is the Chief Innovation Officer at Frederick National Laboratory for Cancer Research. Vladimir manages and coordinates the Center for Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, the CISP. The Center for Innovation facilitates the development of future strategic partnership and collaborations by fostering purpose-driven innovation and targeted outreach to the cancer research community. Through science and technology, business building, and IP and licensing programs, the CISP provides a comprehensive and centralized structure equipped to support internal innovation, provide education, identify and execute partnerships, and increase efficiency in providing internal and external support. His team develops and maintains relationships between the Frederick National Laboratory, the National Cancer Institute, client organizations, and local business communities in Maryland. CISP identifies strategic partnership opportunities capable of addressing important scientific questions and unmet medical needs, handles the evaluation and organization of the National Laboratory's IP portfolio, and actively engages in marketing and licensing efforts. Prior to this role, Vladimir served as Director of the Partnership Development Office, the PDO, overseeing partnership development and implementing processes, client relationships, and partnership projects. Before joining the Frederick National Laboratory, Popov worked as a manager in the healthcare industry, entrepreneur, and licensing manager. He completed 2 postdoctoral fellowships at Thomas Jefferson University and the University of Pennsylvania. He holds a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology from Thomas Jefferson University and a BS in biochemistry from Ramapo College. Popov received his MBA at Johns Hopkins University, Carey Business School. Welcome, Vladimir. Thank you so much for being on the program today.
Thank you, Tommy. It is my pleasure to be here.
I am so excited to talk to you because I've known you for a few years and I know a little bit about your journey and how you've gotten to be where you are today. And I think it's just going to be an exciting conversation for us to have and hopefully revealing and an eye-opener for our listeners as well. So thank you again for taking time to speak to us today. And maybe you can take us back to your early days and what inspiration you got to get into science.
So yeah, depends how early you want, long time ago in a country far away, there was a child born, but I think probably semi short version is that I come from Europe and I came to United States for my education. I came here for undergraduate. I come from a family that's been in the life science medicine for a few generations. So I knew that I wanted to go in that direction. In my undergraduate days, I studied biochemistry. I decided to go to graduate school, wanted to stay on the East Coast, and went to do my PhD in cancer biology. Basically, the program I graduated from was biochemistry, molecular biology, but I was in a big cancer lab that focused on prostate and and breast cancer. So I after completion of my graduate school, I stuck around a little bit. I'm a person of many projects, as you will probably learn through our conversation today. So I had too many projects in the lab, so I stuck around to finish some of them and see them through. After which I decided to actually go back to Europe, and took a little bit of a different approach as far as staying within the scientific realm, but looking at through kind of managerial lens. So I started off as managing biochemistry lab, and then took on some different managerial roles within healthcare. Did that for a few years, and came back to the United States. Frequent flyer here, so I still wanted to be kind of deeper in science, and wanted to be in touch with what essentially was my background at that time. So I joined University of Pennsylvania. I was in the radiation oncology program as a postdoc. But like I said, I'm a person of many projects, so I started looking around what else can I do, and I joined their fellowship in technology transfer, and I worked there as a fellow and as a postdoc fellow, kind of in parallel. I got involved with some of the entrepreneurial activities, some of the I-Corps teaching assistantships, and so on. And finally, I transferred from my postdoc into the full-time licensing position within the Penn Center for Innovation, which was a great position for me because, like I said, I love science. I love the excitement of learning new science, but I can't say that I'm a person who can sit in the lab all day. And no offense to anyone who's full-time scientist, but it's just not me. I need to be exposed to different things and to be stimulated through kind of many projects, right? So tech transfer was good for me because, first of all, it was a new thing. I was excited to learn the other side of science, right? What do you do when there is an innovation? What do you do when there is a discovery? It doesn't end with publication. So that was exciting times for me. I got to learn a lot of ins and outs of tech transfer, commercialization, and I think it essentially prepared me really well for my next role, which was here at the Frederick National Lab. So this was a little over 7 years ago. I basically got an offer to come to the Frederick National Lab to work in a business development, which is more essentially partnership development. Because we're not a business, we're a national lab, so we're a national resource, and that's how my partnership development journey started. I was partnership development manager for a few years, and then I assumed the position of running the partnership development office for a couple of years. I expanded the team. We worked a lot on outreach, on promotion of the national lab, and as of last year, we decided to merge few offices, everything around partnership development, external partnerships to the lab, combined with intellectual property, licensing, tech transfer, and we opened the Center for Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, which I run now as a Chief Innovation Officer. So that's a, believe it or not, a short story. It's not a very kind of linear. It's not straightforward, but I think it opens up a lot of questions, and I know that some of your listeners are wondering, what do they do when they go to grad school? What do they do after grad school? And I was there, and sometimes I had a plan, sometimes I really didn't have a plan. I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but I want to say that when you come to the crossroad, you make the best decision you can. Kind of, you take as many factors into your decision, and then you just roll with it.
Absolutely. And what's the worst that could happen if you just roll with it, right?
Right.
That's what we keep hearing over and over again. It's like, there is no wrong decision. that you can make. This is just the adventure in life, and some of the things you have to do a lot more work and a lot more learning because you might have not been exposed, or you might not have seen that type of field or area before. But it just takes a little bit of effort and some determination and resolve to get it done, right? And it's so awesome to see like your scientific curiosity taking you down the path of cancer early on, and then seeing you continue to affect an impact in the field because of the work that you're doing now and creating relations in creating and translating innovations out. Was there something about cancer, anything that motivated you early on, or was it the research or the people? What was it about cancer?
So, so when I got to graduate school, right, and kind of belonged in a biochem and molecular biology program, obviously, at Jefferson they do more than just cancer, but I think cancer was intriguing to me. It was actually, how you get to grad school, you take classes. The first year you do rotations, and you're supposed to do a couple of rotations and then choose your lab. And I did my first 3 rotations, and it just really wasn't set on any of them. So I was one of those guys who did the 4th rotation, right? And the 4th rotation was really the one that got me interested. And it was like I said, it was a big cancer lab that was well funded, well run, and cancer really intrigued me as in its complexity, right? Because you learn about one disease, second disease, and so on. But cancer is I always tell people, kind of people who are not in science, and they said, "Well, are we ever going to cure cancer?" I said, well, that's kind of a misnomer there. There is not just one disease. Cancer is a lot of different diseases, right? Just think about, when you say cancer and think about a word plant, right? How many different plants do you have, right? So that's how I look at a cancer, as many different things and many different locations and many different things that can go wrong. So you have to approach each individually. And I think that complexity of a disease really, really got me interested in research. And then, approaching things from, breast cancer, prostate cancer, and kind of that basic research. So really diving into, protein characterization, the determining functions of the proteins, and looking into everything on a molecular level. Like I said, it was novel to me in some sense, but very, very intriguing. And that's, where I really, I have to say, fell in love with science. It wasn't, my second year in undergraduate. I was a typical undergraduate. I got my good grades, but it was fine. I kind of knew I have to go and move forward. But grad school was really where things just became very clear. But then, the things, my character, like I said, is I like different things. So the current job is great because, I get to use my science every day, but in a broader sense, and kind of combined with the business side and partnership side.
Yeah, and keeps you, as you said before, motivated. It keeps you excited about doing all the different stuff. Do you like the juggle? Is that what you think drives you? Like, you like having several different things that you're doing at once? Is that variety interesting to you? Or is it more that you were like a busybody and you had like some kind of attention, you needed to have attention here, attention there, attention in different places, otherwise you weren't satisfied? What was it, Vladimir?
I think it's all of the above, to be honest. I definitely love to juggle different things. I'm surprisingly pretty good, decent at switching gears very fast. So and from people who know me personally also know that I like tons of other stuff, right? That I do outside of work, and that are not necessarily related to each other neither, right? So I think even with work, it's something that I'm good at. I can focus on a project, and I can switch gears, and I can switch focus and focus on that project, and keep doing that. And in my work, I sometimes I have 10 12 meetings a day, right? And sometimes the meeting is about the project in infectious diseases, sometimes it's a cancer, sometimes it's in tech transfer, sometimes we're talking about something completely different. How do we fit into economic development here in Frederick County, Maryland, right? And first of all, I like that jumping from a project to project, but I also I love to learn things, right? And it really drives me when I don't know something and I jump into something new. It just wakes up my extra attention, I think, until I really figured out how to do it. So in a sense, this job is really perfect for me because I get to do all of that, right? I get to, like I said, I get to use science on an everyday basis. I not just one protein characterized in breast cancer that I was focused on for a few years, but you get to use science in a broader sense, because here at the Frederick National Lab, we do very broad approach. We do everything from very basic research to running clinical trials and everything in between, right? And I get from a partnership business side, I get exposed to that science, so I get to learn what's new. I get to talk to the scientists. I get to talk to the potential partners and collaborators, and then I get to apply this business side that they don't know about, and that I learned and I'm still learning about, and it's exciting, right? It's exciting that I get to learn new things, and I get to show other people some new things that they don't know.
Yeah, no, that absolutely. I think that's very rewarding too, right? And being able to provide value to other people who might be able to be helped with that. So you spoke a little bit about your postdoc, but it was during your postdoc time then or your second postdoc time, that you started to get into this innovation center and seeing how you could help as a fellow or getting a fellowship through that branch. Explain to us a little bit what happened there. Like what was it? Just the novelty of learning that newness and the novelty of different patterns, learning those new different sciences, new types of innovations. As you said, it seems like it was it continues to be a theme in your life now. I wonder if it was at that time that the excitement of being able to learn about that, but also to get engaged in so many different projects and science, patents and IP disclosures, so on.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and to be honest, one that I often wonder, kind of what really happened, what happened there, right? And you kind of go back in time, and in my graduate school, I was involved in a startup, and with one of my mentors, and we licensed the technology, and I was kind of marginally involved with it because I was a graduate student, and I had other work to do, but it was one of those things that was very foreign to me. I didn't really understand how the whole thing works, and I rolled with it as much as I could understand at the time. And when I came to UPenn, I obviously was also in a great lab for my postdoc, and UPenn is a big kind of entrepreneurial community, right? And there was a lot of buzz around starting about companies that are coming out. We worked on the same floor with Carl June, so you would see him in the hallway, and you kind of start thinking, okay, well, this guy's obviously brilliant, but there's this company behind, and there's this whole business. So then I started inquiring about, what is this tech transfer, and I got to learn about it. And Penn is great because they offer this fellowship program that you can do in parallel, even if you're a graduate student or if you're a postdoc. You can spend a few hours a week doing a fellowship with Penn Center for Innovation, and you can learn about this. And I think that's a great program, and I know a lot of schools have this. But when I was a graduate student, it wasn't as prevalent, right? Because I think it opens doors for graduate students who are in science, who don't necessarily want to be in science, or I think we need to be realistic as well. Not everyone can be a PI at the university. We know what success rate there is, right? And you're still going to end up with a lot of people with graduate degrees. So getting them an opportunity to learn about something else early on, and decide, okay, this is something for me, or no, I really don't care. I really don't care about this, right? And kind of fail early, if you will. But at least don't waste the next couple of years trying to get a job and give it a chance, and because then you're already invested a few years into something that you ultimately end up not liking. So Penn was great for that, and it gave me an opportunity. I got involved as a fellow. I got introduced to tech transfer. I got introduced to PIs who are very entrepreneurial, who kind of kept having disclosures and talking about new ideas. Throughout that fellowship, I assumed some other roles. So UPenn was running their Penn Core, which is kind of similar to I-Core, kind of educational course for entrepreneurs. So I was exposed on that end to this entrepreneurial side. I worked a lot with the business students from Wharton School, and ultimately decided to switch full time to tech transfer, because it was the excitement was that you kept learning new things that no one knew about, and no one meaning that lab and the PI knew about it, but the world did not know about these potential great things, right? And you would get to talk to people, and people who are very passionate about it, and the scientists are very passionate about their ideas, and to guide them, to tell them how to protect their ideas, where could this go. So that was very exciting for me, and it was never a dull moment, to be honest. There were some times, when you have to tell someone, your baby's ugly, and you really don't have you really don't have an invention here, even though you spent last 10 years, but it's a great publication. And those are conversations that are not as pleasant, but they're not that, they don't happen that often. Most of it is pretty rewarding. So that was my kind of tech transfer journey. And I think I realized also during that tech transfer journey that, again, I don't want to do this full time. I think tech transfer is great. I think all of that is very useful, and I want to have it in part of my professional career, but I can't do it full time. And I think the important thing in those instances is just to be honest with yourself. And that's why I transition into kind of partnership development, business development that still has aspects. It has aspect of science. So, I'm in touch with my science. I'm in touch with my technology transfer and commercialization, but then I do a lot of other things as well.
Yeah, totally. And that variety just keeps on happening, right?
Exactly.
I know you mentioned your startup company. I on your LinkedIn page, it's Lipogen LLC.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder what that was like. So this was during your PhD, and your advisor said, "Hey, I have this company, a startup company, and I want you to help me get it going." But you didn't realize that there was IP, or you didn't realize that there was this whole side of patents and so on to this startup. Tell us a little bit about that. And was it confusing, or it was just like, yeah, I'll just go do whatever they're asking me to do?
It was again, right. It was a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. It was it wasn't my main advisor. It was one of the PIs that was in a lab, right? So it was one of my mentors, and we decided to license a technology. Basically, it was a molecule that was inhibiting lipogenesis, right? Hence lipogen, very creative. But and we, it was his idea, and he said, hey, you've worked on this before with me, and would you be interested? So we literally co-founded a company, right, the two of us. And started that journey kind of towards, like I said, towards the end of my PhD, graduate school education, and then worked on it for a few years, and went through all of the learning and failing things. We had a space, we went into the incubator, we bought a bunch of equipment, we did a lot of things in the right way, and we wrote a couple of SBIR grants and things like that. Eventually we ended up getting some funding and being kind of partially bought out, so at that point I stepped out of kind of active even management or involvement with the company. But looking back now, 15 years later, I wish I had known A, B, C, and D. I think it would have been a different story. But then again, it got my feet wet in that space, and definitely told me that this is something that I want to keep being involved with.
That's wonderful. And having that experience so early on to understand how to structure a company and what is a business plan and all of that, I'm in awe, because to do that during your PhD and handle both responsibilities it's a lot. But you don't seem like you're the person that watched a lot of TV. It seems like you're the type of person that just like kept going and kept pushing and kept taking up these opportunities. And at every step of the way you kept succeeding because you put your heart into it. And I'm sure it was difficult times to juggle it all together, but I commend you for doing that. I'm sure that it might have also given you some good perspective as to this business development manager piece. Tell us a little bit about that. How did you find out about that position at Frederick, and what, like, how did you apply for it, or how did you get in there?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, and we didn't script this, by the way. It's all organic here, the conversation. So I'm glad you asked that, because I always say, I come from a different country in Europe, and in my country it's a lot about connections, and it's a lot about who you know. And they said, well, how is it in the United States? I said, well, it's the same and different, right? It really matters who you know. Your network really matters, but your network is only going to get you so far. It will get you to an introduction. It will get you to kind of familiarization with the new opportunity that you might not know about, but it won't get you a job. And that's literally how I ended up actually at the Frederick National Lab. It was one of my, at the time when I was at Jefferson, he wasn't my colleague, he was a professor and I was a student, but we used to have these happy hours, and we would meet at happy hour and we would chat, and I left Jefferson, I went to Europe, and I came back, and a couple of years later I run into him at ACR, and which is a big cancer conference. And he says, well, where have you been for the last couple of years? You dropped off the face of the earth. And I asked him, well, where are you now? He said, well, I work at the Frederick National Lab. And I said, Frederick, what? And he says, oh, it's this national lab. And he pretty much does the spiel that now I do every day. And I said, well, that's great. You're running partnership development office. And we chatted for another half an hour about everything else. And couple of months later, literally, he reaches out to me and he says, I know that you're doing a lot of tech transfer. I know that you're doing, you finished your postdoc, and we have this position that really fits your background. You have worked in managerial positions. You have your scientific background. You have tech transfer. Would you be interested in coming to interview for a position? And just like that, out of blue, I didn't know about the position. I would have never looked. I didn't know where Frederick was, to be honest, in Maryland. I mean, I was I was in Philadelphia, South Jersey area at the time, and I came and I interviewed, and I really loved the position, and it worked out. So I ended up here, and he was my boss at the time, and then he left, and I assumed that position. So I always say it's really, when you talk to people who are kind of starting their career, or finishing their education, and everyone keeps saying, oh, your network is very important, and it kind of becomes a boring statement, but it really is. It's really important who you know. And like I said, it's not going to get you the job, but it will get you to an opportunity, and it will get you to information you might not know. You'll get a job if you're qualified for it, and that's it.
Definitely. Absolutely. And I think it's so true that you need to keep exercising that network. Like, had you not ran into him at ACR and been like, oh, hi, like, you're part of my network type of thing. Sometimes those opportunities are missed and they don't remember you. What was that time in Europe, if you don't mind sharing a little bit? What drew you back to Europe, and then what drew you back to the States? What was that transition like?
Right. So one piece information I failed to mention was, towards the end of my graduate school, I already kind of started being interested, and this was kind of in parallel with the startup. And since I was done with classes, I was doing research, and on a very rich salary, as as a graduate student, you didn't really have too many other options. So I decided to take some business classes in Jefferson, right? So I was taking these evening classes, and I would take 1 or 2 classes per semester, and kind of got interested in the business side of everything. And when I graduated Jefferson and finished that short postdoc, I got an opportunity to go back to Serbia, where I'm from, and work at a private hospital. And it was one of a few at the time. This was about 15 years ago, almost now. Serbia was just transitioning from kind of a national health system and opening up into the private practice world. And this was one of the hospitals that was built as a general hospital, and it was in the private side. So they needed someone to help them kind of optimize the biochemistry lab. And I started there, and I took on some other managerial roles in that diagnostic department. And that was great. I mean, it was great being home, and I had to relearn some of the scientific terms in my in my first language, because my education was in English. And I loved the job. I think I loved the dynamics. I loved the novelty of it. But eventually I realized that my science is not being utilized. Less and less was I using my scientific knowledge, and I missed that part. And I think that was a big part, the big contributor to the decision, actually, to come back here to look for a career where I can satisfy my scientific curiosity and use my scientific background, but still have the business side of it. And I got to go back to business school when I joined, Frederick National Lab. I went back to school and got my MBA. So those classes kind of, there were 15 years ago that I started taking. I guess they still continued tickling my interest for the business world.
And it's so wonderful also to have the opportunity of having an employer that will support you in that pursuit. What was that like? Did you have to ask, or did somebody suggest that to you? Was there a boss that you said, hey, this would be good for my career development? What was that conversation like, if there was one?
So it was kind of towards, I guess, even when I was at Penn, right, and I was in the licensing world, and I knew that I wanted to look kind of for the next position potentially that has tech transfer and other business aspects of it. I was thinking of a business school. Then the position worked out for me to come to Frederick National Lab, and I came to find out that well, let me back up a little bit actually. So Frederick National Lab, just give you like a 1 minute overview, right? It's a national lab, it's a government owned, but it's contractor operated, right? So we're operated by Leidos Biomedical Research, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Leidos Incorporated. So it's a big company that has the subsidiary called Leidos Biomedical Research, and it operates a national lab under contract for the government, right? So I'm an employee of a private entity, basically. And I found out when I started working, I found out there was this great educational assistance program. And I found out that there are a number of people who are using this as part of the employment where our company pays for our education. So I talked to the HR specialist and I said, well, what does this mean? Are you really going to pay for my school? And they said, yeah, just tell us, what are you thinking? Which school are you thinking? And tell us, what's the price tag there, and how are you planning on taking these classes? Of course, you have to get clearance from your supervisor. So there was that conversation with my boss, of, hey, can you manage it? I've also 3 kids at a time. I had 2 kids, but he said, are you sure you can manage? And then I said, well, I'll take it slowly, right? And I got into Hopkins, which has a Carey Business School, has a very flexible, it's actually called flexible MBA. So it's a part-time program that allows you to kind of spread out your classes over 6 years. So you can basically end up taking one class at a time, and you can choose whether you want to do virtually, you want to do in person. And Hopkins is here in Baltimore. It's an hour away from us, but I chose most of the classes virtually, and it was just better convenience. I can, in the evening, once the kids go to bed, I get to do my academic work, and it worked out great. And the company basically paid for all of it, which is an amazing thing, and an amazing perk when you work somewhere. So that was the journey, and I promised my wife I won't go to school anymore. I'm done. That's it. so yeah.
Well, but
that's the story.
That I love that story. And for me, the lesson is, hey, go look to see what opportunities there are for personal development, for career development in your place of work, because had you not looked and asked the question to HR, you might still, be wondering what that was like. And again, commendable, like to take on that responsibility with your family balanced, with your responsibilities at work continue to be balanced, because I'm sure you didn't drop any of it. And it must have been a lot of a juggling act. Again, what how did you do it? Yes, evenings, the academic work. Do you find that a lot of the coursework was fairly easy because you had prepared, you had taken those other business courses prior, you knew what you were getting into, and you knew essentially a little bit of the subject matter? You had already an interest in it.
Right. It's a combination of things, right? I won't pretend I remembered what I learned 15 years ago at Jefferson, because I think I have a memory of a fruit fly, but and attention as well, right? But it was to me, the pace worked really well. And yes, it was spread over 6 years, right? Because I had to take 27 classes.
Yeah.
But so I was taking kind of 5 classes a year, right? But the semesters were short. They were 8-week semesters. And I'm also particularly stubborn person. So I if I start something, I will finish it. And there were some classes that were harder. I'm not going to pretend. You start taking corporate finance and other classes. You're kind of, okay, this is very different from molecular biology and from DNA. But at the same time, it was exciting. Like I said, I do have that desire to learn new things. I want to say what I found was very useful and made things much easier was the fact that I already had work experience at that time. So, I previously worked in academic setting. I worked in private industry, I worked in healthcare, and my concentration in MBA is running healthcare organizations, right? So there were a lot of classes related to healthcare, related to kind of business side of that, and applying real life knowledge to the theory behind it. I found it much easier, much more relatable, right? And I saw that for example, some of the students who came straight from undergraduate into the business school, they had to rely on those, I won't say artificial examples, because there are a lot of times you learn real life examples, but they're not your experiences, right? And then you kind of have to put yourself in that role. While I think for me, I was in that role. Obviously, I didn't know what what I know now, but at least you could pull on that experience, and you can apply that and say, oh wow, so this is what I should have done, by the way, duh.
Yeah.
And it all of a sudden there's a light bulb and it says, well, that now it's making much more sense, right? But I had a lot of those moments, and I think those are the things that you remember, right? They stay with you, and it's kind of like a long-term memory then.
And I really I think that aspect of it is so important to realize too, is that there's a lot that you can learn from a book. There's a lot that you can learn from reading, from watching videos, from talking to people. But some of it, you really have to go through it yourself to really learn it. And there's no substitute for going through the pains of doing that. Nobody else can walk with your feet for you, type of thing. You have to learn how to walk, and you're going to fall many times before you get the balance and before you get to do something like running or jogging type of thing.
No,
So
absolutely.
I think it's so important from the way that you painted it, because I can imagine those aha moments in class where you're like, oh my gosh, now this really makes sense, because you can relate to it. So what would you recommend? Scientists are all over the place, many times very inspired by the science, but as you and even I, at some point in time, they say, I think I'm better at managing and helping construct relations, build bridges, connect people, tech transfer, translation, versus me actually doing it in the lab. And so, if we were to take any lessons from your story, is, well, get busy learning other things. But what other recommendations would you say to that inspired scientist that is willing to take the leap and say, how do I get started?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things probably, right? Uh, talk to people, who you think you want to have their job, or you like what they do, right? And this was literally a couple of days ago, a friend of mine called me. He said, "Hey, I have this cousin who is in, your molecular world, and he wants to get his PhD, but he doesn't necessarily maybe want to do research after that." So I spent like an hour talking to this guy. He's a very smart guy, and he wants to go into graduate school, but he also wants to know what are the options after that. And I said, "Well, I can tell you my experience, right? And you take it for what it's worth, right?" But I think talking to people and getting their experience, also expose yourself to different things. I think 15-20 years ago, it was much harder to get exposed to other things. There weren't fellowships, there weren't internships that are available now. There wasn't YouTube. There was a lot of things. By the way, a big proponent of YouTube. I learned a lot of things from YouTube.
Yeah.
And so really educate yourself. What do you want to do? And then give it a decent shot. If you try doing something and you really kind of make that educated decision, okay, this is what I want to do. Like I did with tech transfer. Well, I think I want to do that. Well, I didn't give up after 6 months. I gave it a fellowship. I gave it a full-time position, right? And then at that point be honest with yourself, right? Okay, this is what I really like, and don't settle for things just because it's comfortable, right? Get out of that comfort zone, because that's the worst thing, right? Because you'll settle for a lot of things for the sake of comfort. As my brother would say, nothing's hard, you just got to do it, and that's it. So stick to the things, give them a decent shot, and be honest. If you end up not liking it, just change it, because ultimately it starts mattering when you get into the job and you get into the career. It matters that you love what you do. And I know people kind of take this for granted, and it kind of become an expression, you have to love what you do, but it does, because I wake up in the morning and I love what I do. I like to come to work. I like to talk to people. It drives me. It's never a dull moment. And I think it's important, because it sets your mood. It sets your whole life around that, because guess what? You spend 8 to 10 hours at work. It better be something you like, because you're going to be miserable if it's not, right?
Right.
So I don't know if this is in the form of advice or what it is, but it's my experience, and kind of how some of the rules that I tried following, at least.
I thank you for that advice, because I take it as advice, and I hope others are taking it as advice too. It's, we are on this constant search for what we like to do and what we enjoy doing. There seems to also be this factor of we like doing what we're good at doing. And it seems that your type of character, your type of personality makes you the perfect chief innovation officer for the Frederick National Laboratory for Cancer Research. And it seems like you're a people person, you're a gregarious type of person. And I find that perhaps that's even one of the biggest elements of your success is you don't stay still. You like going to talk to people and learning about different things. Thank you for sharing so much about that, Vladimir. It's been great conversation. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I would have asked you? Is there anything that you would like to share in closing?
Tommy, we'll catch up in a few months. I think I'm coming up there. So
Yes.
you and I definitely have a lot in common, a lot of things to talk about. But no, I think this was amazing. I think this is a great thing that you're doing. I like I said before our interview, I did watch a number of these interviews, and I think it's a great opportunity, and hopefully people are seeing it as useful, because like I said, YouTube, hey, you can watch people's
Yes.
experiences, see. And I really thank you for the opportunity to share my story, and if I manage to affect one person, that's a great success and a great start of my Thursday morning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we could continue this conversation for several hours, and I hope we do when we get to see each other in the next few months. But I hope you have the great rest of your Thursday and rest of your day. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Vladimir Popov, the Chief Innovation Officer at Frederick National Laboratory for Cancer Research. Thank you for being our Pathfinder today.
Thank you, Tommy. Pleasure was mine.
Thank you for joining us once again, and remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel.